today's video, we're going to check out the new backup alarm from my friends at ImportBible. This is going to be their Mienai backup alarm, or Mienai, I don't know how to say it. ImportBible makes one of my favorite car accessories, which is the Russia Melody box, and I really think I'm going to like this. So we're going to go ahead, unbox it, I'm going to tell you a little bit about it, and I'm going to show you how to wire it up. And we're also going to trigger all the sounds. This has 9 total melodies built in. We're going to go through all of them. So let's get started. So with the backup alarm, you get 9 exclusive tracks from ImportBible. There's 4 voice tones and 3 melodies. It also includes a 1-year warranty. The package includes mounting screws and tap connectors. The backup alarm is waterproof and can be mounted outside of the vehicle, and it's pretty loud. It's rated for 115 decibels, which is loud enough to be heard over pretty much any car, no matter if it's an American muscle car or a straight piped VQ. With the backup alarm, you can't modify or add any tracks. It's pretty much set from the factory and you're good to go. So let's go ahead and run through those 9 melodies on my table. I have a 12-volt power supply, and you can hear each one, see which ones you like. There's a few that I really like and I want to be able to switch between them, so when we do the install, I'm going to show you how to do that. Comment below which sounds are your favorites. So right off the bat, one of my favorite things is that this comes with a super long tail. A lot of car accessories don't come with long tails, so this was good thinking by ImportBible to have a nice long wiring harness on it. To get different sounds out of this, you're going to use your black wire as your negative, and then a combination of load wires for the different melodies. So for example, we can use red and green to get the excuse me coming through sound, and then our black is going to go to the negative. To test these out, we got a 12-volt DC power supply that we're going to use just to get different sounds. This is just for demonstration purposes. You're really going to want to power this off of a car battery. A lot of really interesting sounds. It's pretty cool. So let's go to the garage and I'm going to show you how to wire this thing up to a car for real. So as for the vehicle we're going to use the 1992 Nissan Skyline that I just so happen to have right here. We could probably install this without jacking up the car, so I'm tempted to just do it in a driveway, but I think I'm going to go to the garage just because I have more tools up there. I haven't started this in a couple weeks. Hopefully it starts. Just gotta get this thing out of the way and then we can get started. So here is the Skyline and all its dirty glory. And this thing looks good under these lights. But now that we got this in the garage, we can go ahead and start. This car was partially gutted when I got it. You can see that the trunk's all ripped apart and whatnot. So the install on this is going to be a lot easier than most cars. And because this is gutted, it's really easy to look at the wiring harness So as for mounting the backup alarm, depending on how low your car is, you might not even need to jack it up. It's a little tight under my car. I can fit under there pretty easy. It's a sign that I should really lower it. Also, when you're mounting the backup alarm, you might want to make sure that you pick the side that's a little more open. You don't want to have it near anything hot like the exhaust, but because I have a little grommet over here on this side, I think I am going to put it on the left side of the car, just because it's more convenient. If I did want to put it on the right hand side though, I can do it because that whip is pretty long. That's another benefit of having that nice long harness. Kit does come with a couple nice self-tapping screws, but I think we're going to through bolt the alarm on mine. Don't mind the underglow. There's a hole on the gas tank right here where I can put a bolt in. You might want to put a couple bolts in this thing. Because it has this little platform also, you could mount this inside the trunk if you really wanted to, but it's going to be a little loud if we do that. We're just going to put it on that little hole and then go from there. Now we can take our wiring harness and push it through the grommet that's on this side. Now that we have the wiring harness inside of the car, we can go ahead and start doing some wiring. You can cut the harness down if it's too much slack for you, but I'm going to leave it full length in case I want to relocate this at some point. As for the wiring, you can find a wiring diagram for your car online probably somewhere. You're going to be tying into the backup light circuit. On the Nissan Skyline, it's a white and green wire. I couldn't find any diagram on my car. So what I did was I took the reverse lights out and saw which wires were going to it. You should have a black and then another color. Your black is usually always going to be a negative on a car. So we had a black that's completing the circuit for our negative, and then the white and green was our positive. Because the kit includes these ADA circuit connectors, you don't even have to cut anything or splice anything or solder anything. This little groove is going to notch into the insulation on the wire, and then you can use this for your 12 volt positive signal. To use these, all you got to do is throw it on the wire. You might need a pair of pliers to squeeze these down, but you'll hear this thing kind of snap. So from here you can go right to the backup alarm wires that you want. You might want to put a fuse in line with the circuit. Your backup lights are going to be fused from the factory usually, but it's always good to have an extra fuse. Because I know where the backup light fuse is, we're just going to wire this up as is. This is going to be the most simplest install that we could possibly do. I think we're going to do the red and green wires, which is the excuse me coming through. I kind of like that one. So what you want to do is take the red and green wires. You might want to strip them just a little bit and then twist them together. And then put your male connector on top of the two wires. You want to make sure that the copper is touching the metal part of the connector. Then you can crimp them down. Just make sure you pick the right gauge. Now once this is crimped on, you can go ahead and plop that right into the other side of the connector. And it should look like that. Then for your negative, you're going to do the exact same thing, but you're going to land that on the black wire. I was about halfway done editing this video when I decided that I'm going to try to make it to where we can change the sounds a little bit easier. To do that, we're going to use a terminal strip. This is going to be so we can swap the wires around a little bit easier. We're going to take the hot from the reverse light circuit, and then we're going to have that wire go directly to the back side of the terminal strip. And then we're going to put a couple jumpers in here, so when the backup light comes on, it makes pretty much this entire side hot. And then we can change the wires on this side, completing the circuit. We can do 2 or 3 at a time or however many we want. So let's do that now. Usually I wouldn't recommend doing terminal strips on a car because the car bounces around a lot and these things can loosen up after a while. But because I don't drive this car that much really, and because everything's going to be fused, it's going to be really safe. If the hot wire did come loose and touch something, it's just going to trip out the reverse light circuit. For even more protection, you might want to put an inline fuse to the wire that's feeding the first terminal, but we're not even going to worry about that. Also with these terminal strips, you could throw a screw through them if you wanted to mount this on the car inside the trunk. These are not going to be weatherproof obviously, but anyway, I'll show you how this idea works. So we're not going to need this full-size terminal strip. I am going to cut this down a little bit. The backup alarm only has 5 wires, So we're going to put 5 wires underneath of this backside and then pull the jumpers out accordingly, depending on what kind of sound we want. There's no way to make this automatic, but it's still going to make it easier to swap sounds just by pulling out or adding a jumper. For the jumpers, we're just going to use some 18 gauge red wire that we have laying around. If you wanted to buy these terminal strips, they're made by a company called Ideal. I can put the part number for these in the description below if you wanted to buy some. It doesn't have to be this style terminal strip. This is just what I had laying around. So also with doing this setup, we're going to add a switch. I already had a wire ran through to the trunk for something else. So to wire a switch, you're just going to need 2 wires. You're going to need one that goes out to the switch and then one that comes back from the switch. You can mount a switch in the car pretty easy. I already have mine by the center console to shut this on and off. Adding the switch is going to make it where you can shut off the alarm in case you're going to Cars and Coffee at 5 in the morning and you don't want to wake up your neighbors. It's not a necessity, it's just something if you want to be considerate. So for the switch, I have a black and a red. We're going to take our feed from the reverse lights and go out on the black wire and then come back on the red. And then we're going to take the red and land that to the terminal strip. And then this is going to be the feed for all the different sounds. Now we're going to cut a few little jumpers for the feed side of the strip. And then strip these out and put them on the terminal strip. To use these terminal strips, you are going to need a little control screwdriver. It's going to have a little itty bitty slotted tip on it. Now we take our red feed that's coming back from the switch and land that on the feed side of the terminals. So once you get all the jumpers in, it should look like this. We're only going to need 3 wires at a time. So doing it this way, we can move the jumpers around. Also having 5 of these is going to allow us to land all the wires for the backup alarm. You don't want to make all the wires hot. I'm not sure what would happen, but it could potentially trip the circuit out or something. The most you're going to need is 3 feeds on any sound. So on these, I'm going to land it as red and green and then white. You don't necessarily have to put these in that order. If you have a sound that you want to use more often than other ones, you could make those the first 3 wires. And this is yellow and brown. So for the first sound, we're going to have our red, our green, and our white all being fed by the hot. And then yellow and brown are not going to have any voltage going to them. So this should be the single chime sound. Now we can also turn this off with the switch. And it also goes off when we take it out of reverse. So now to make different sounds, we can move the jumpers around or take them out if we want to just do a 2-wire sound. So to do excuse me coming through, all we would have to do is take this jumper out, screw that back on, and we'll have that sound. And now if we wanted to do like the Car Finally Works melody, which is red, white, and yellow, we would take our jumper from the green, throw that on the white, add another jumper to go to the yellow. If you do this setup, you can screw this somewhere. We're not going to screw it down because Skylines are expensive and this car is already rusty enough as is. We're going to tie wrap everything up though. Keep this somewhere where we can move it around if we need to. The kit doesn't include tie wraps, but if you are a car person, you should have a bunch of tie wraps laying around anyway. So yeah, we're just going to try to tidy that up a little bit. Make sure no wires are hanging out. The install might look a little complicated, but it's pretty easy. The easiest way to install this would be to just pick one sound, but doing this terminal strip idea lets you change it up if you want to. And yeah, it's a really fun piece. I'm looking forward to doing a bunch of different stuff with this summer and going to a bunch of different events with this car. So on that note, back to the studio. ImportBible makes a lot of really cool stuff, and this backup alarm is no exception. It's really well made, the install was easy, it's nice and loud, and with all the different melody options, I don't think I'll get bored of it anytime soon. If you want to check one out for yourself, I think they're like $70. You can find it on ImportBible's website. I'll put a link in the description below. And yeah, that's going to be it for the video. I hope you enjoyed it. We're going to have some Skyline stuff coming up soon because the weather is finally getting nice again. And I really want to try to go to as many events as I possibly can this spring and summer. So yeah, stay tuned for all that. Thanks for watching the video, and I will see you soon.